Thanks so much, Mark. Hi, everybody. My name's Helena. I work for a law firm that specialises in music and entertainment in London, and I also run with a few girls in London a network called She Said So, where we try and bring women from all over the world together and try and inspire and provide mentorship and just help each other, basically. And She Said So is running this panel, and it's actually shortly going to be launching in Belfast, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up about that. If anybody would like to join, if you go to www.shesaid.so, you can sign up and you're part of the network immediately. It's that simple, and hopefully you'll get some inspiration and make some contacts through that. Anyway, enough about me and about She Said So, more about these guys. I'd like to introduce you to some amazing panelists that I've got here. Shamsi Celeste is my artist on the panel. Many of you probably know her. She's a producer and DJ. She's known for her melodic club bangers. And she's generally awesome. Next to her, and she's also just come straight from Berlin, so, you know, respect. That's the other side of the life of the DJs and producers. Hats off. Marcus can keep his hat on, though. This is Marcus Barnes. He's a journalist and also a music manager. He writes for Mixmag, RA, Thump, lots of other places, Festival 300, and he also manages a few acts, which he can talk to you about later. We've got Dresden here from Big Box Media. Dresden is head of press at a media agency that specialises in sort of underground music, youth subcultures, and does a lot of event stuff. And at the end here, we've got Grace, who's head joint of press at Listen Up, which is one of the leading PR agencies for electronic music, and they look after people like the big guys, are people like David Guetta and Steve Aoki, but also lots of the oh shit, and also loads of the cool smaller people too. You know what I'm saying. So I really want to find out about how you guys all got into music and what set you off on this road. So let's start with you, Dresden. What brought you to the music world?
I always loved music, and then I studied events at uni because I thought that would be like a really good way to get into it. Whilst I was at uni, started putting on club nights, sort of like cut my teeth doing that, promoting. And then when I left uni, I started working for a little label that belonged to one of my friends. And then they had like a little press arm as well. So after about 6 months, I decided that I really liked doing press, and that's where I ended up at Big Box. So
it's often one of those things when you work for small companies that you end up doing something that you didn't start.
You just basically end up like doing everything, and then you're like, oh yeah, I like that bit, I'll do that.
Cool. And so you've been in press and PR ever since, right?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And Grace?
Yeah, I mean, I was working a really horrible corporate PR job, which just, it was called Red Consultancy in London. So I did that for 2 years and then quit, and then started interning at Family PR. So they did Rinse, they did David Lynch, some really cool stuff, and then now I've been at Listen Up for 2 years.
Wow, it's only been 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Oh my God, she's smashing it. And what about you, Marcus?
I got into writing about music through, I've been a journalist for like 13 years now, and I did a lot of I got into it through like men's magazines, and then I worked at The Sun and the Daily Mail, who hated it. And actually I went to Ibiza in 2010, a little bit later on in my life actually. I was like 29, and I was like massive drum and bass head in my teens, and then I got into dubstep and I got into garage and all that kind of stuff, and I loved house and stuff, but I didn't really appreciate it that much. And when I went to Ibiza, I mean, obviously, like, you go to Ibiza, fell in love with it. Came back to the UK, and I was working at the Daily Mail, and I was, writing about celebrity bullshit, and, having to say that Eva Longoria was fat, and, doing all this, it was horrible. It was, really, really horrible. And in the end, I was like, what the hell am I doing? I love music so much, I just started writing about it. So I basically quit working at the Daily Mail and tried to kind of use my experience, my credentials as an established journalist to get into writing about music. And 5 or 6 years later, I'm doing pretty good at it. So yeah.
You certainly are. Shanti, I actually read in an article that you hate this question because you get asked it so much. So forgive me, but let's just start with it. How did you get into music?
Raves, basically.
It's often party promoting.
Yeah, just going to raves, basically, in the Lake District, in quarries, dangerous quarries. Yeah, basically, and all my guy mates were like, they had turntables and they played music, so I was like, can I have a go? And they were like, yeah, and then I just liked it.
And did you find those guys, they sort of supported you and taught you and brought you
yeah,
into
but
that?
I had to get in there. Do you know what I mean? I had to be like, let me have a go.
Really?
Yeah.
And
Not because they were like, oh, you can't have a go because you're a girl. No, just because
No.
because, I don't know, like if you're doing something that you like doing, you're just doing it, aren't you? You're not really thinking, you're not going like,
Oh,
hey,
come on, if you're enjoying playing.
come on, do you
don't
want to have a go? Like, you're just, playing with the decks. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a split between people who kind of went straight into music and people who kind of had a bit of a tipping point. For those of you who changed careers, did you find it difficult to get into the music industry?
I found it pretty easy. I mean, I think if you're really passionate about it, it's quite easy, and it's a receptive industry for anyone who wants to go out and get it. I mean, once I kind of decided that, it was like I had to work unpaid for 2 years, but, once that happened, it's like you kind of get to where you want to go.
What about you, Marcus?
Yeah, that too. The funny thing was, and I wasn't arrogant at the time, but I thought, oh yeah, the Sun and the Daily Mail on my CV, I can probably go anywhere. Like outside of the commercial realm, if I go and approach like an underground music PR, they'll be like, yeah, cool. Oh, you work for the Sun and Daily Mail? Yeah, cool. Interview anyone you want. And it wasn't like that at all. It was like people like, yeah, who are you? Have you interviewed any other DJs? No. Yeah. Well, go and do that first, and then come back to us when you've done it. And fortunately, Ed Carney, who is Seth Troxler's manager, was doing Seth's PR at the time, and I found Ed's email on like Seth's old Facebook fan page, and I just sent him an email going, "Hey, Seth's my favourite DJ. Can I please?" And he was like, "Yeah, send some questions over." So I like diligently did like 20 or 30 questions, and thought like he's never going to have the time. Like even back then, Seth was like really well known. It was like 2010. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, Ed sent me an email going, "Hey, Seth's taken a lot of time with this, so make sure that it definitely gets published." And he'd written like loads of like full-on answers to like every single question, and I was like, "Oh my god, wow!" And that was like my first interview with like a big DJ. And I think once I had that allowed me to then go up to people and go, "I've interviewed Seth. Can I interview so and so?" Then I ended up luckily acquiring a blog on the Independent website's blog section, and having the Independent as an umbrella was just like, I interviewed everyone that I wanted, like hands down. Like it was just it was a piece of piss basically once I had that.
It's interesting you say that though, because a lot of artists that I work with have real trouble getting their visas into the US, and they need a certain amount of press, like high level press, including print press and broadsheet press, in order to get the access they need. You're nodding, because you're probably tasked with this.
Marcus was our go-to. Independent blog. It's like, great link at the Independent blog. We just call it Marcus every time.
Please, Marcus.
Right.
What about you,
Very
the
good
grime
to us.
artists, trying to get them into the
like,
US?
Yeah, they're a bit harder to work with.
Saved our campaigns.
They don't even answer their phones.
I know, I work with a few too. But it's true that there is something tribal about the music industry for those who are not yet in it. And you actually do, being just good at what you do is not enough. You have to show that you know what you're doing in that specific genre, and you have to know the people, you have to understand, you have to research, you have to really knock on doors until people let you in. And that was the exact same experience I had when I went from being a city and corporate lawyer to trying to be a music lawyer. And I've got an Oxford law degree, and I was at a Magic Circle firm, and I was knocking on doors and people wouldn't give me a job for free. I could not get a free job as a legal intern at a record label. It took me about 3 months. And that, so you do have to work at it. You really do have to push and force, but you also have to think strategically about where you want to go. And I'm sure it's the same for artists. You get certain lineups easily, but get on certain bookings of friends easily. But there must be tipping point lineups that you get on that suddenly people start to take you more seriously in particular promotional circles. Would you agree with that? Have you had any like key events that you've played that have just like people like that event change the course of your bookings for the rest of that festival season? Or
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of the time it's about the club. Obviously, like the lineup is very, very important, but it's like play Panama Bar, and it's like, oh, we should play at Panama Bar, or do you know what I mean? It's like you play like certain clubs that are like really kind of well known and like respected or whatever, and then that kind of gives you. And obviously, the lineup is also a big deal. Like last night was like one of the best lineups that I've played on, I think, and that was one of the ones where I'm just like, oh, I feel like I'm getting somewhere.
Tell us who was on it quickly.
So I played in Trésor with, it's like Object did this Kern series mix that Trésor do. They're like the third one. and he put one of my tracks on one of the exclusive 12s that comes out with it. So last night was like the launch, and it was like Object, Radioactive Man, and DJ Bone in the main room, then Core Super, Machine Woman, and Om, and then me and Laurel Halo and this girl called Edith.
I don't know.
She's a booker for a club in Tel Aviv, and she's really wicked, and she like books for this really amazing club in Tel Aviv, basically. And so yeah, it was just a really like well balanced lineup,
fantastic.
and it was like I was just on the same lineup as DJ Bone, so I was like happy with that.
That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I would also love to hear from some of the rest of you about other career tipping points where you really, either points where you feel like, oh God, is this ever going to happen? Or points where you're like, wow, like actually I've just achieved a personal goal, or maybe my parents actually acknowledge that this could actually be something that could be a career for me, or, you know, what, do you have any of those?
I mean, I reckon for me it's like doing press for like a first event and then watching that like pan out and being there, and you're like standing backstage and you're like, yeah, this is fucking good. Yeah, this is pretty sick. And like being part of something like that when you're doing an event and seeing everyone come together and like the crew behind it, like just like AVA is amazing. Like you can't beat it. So I reckon that was mine.
And are those big moments, are they enough to see you through those days, which are inevitable, where you're working 14, 15 hours, or you're flying straight to a conference from another show, or you're not getting enough sleep or eating well? Because there is a bit of that, especially in the electronic side of things, where you are working, if you're working at an event, all of you work events at times, you're not finishing until 6, 7 in the morning, whatever. You know, how is it enough to
Yeah,
make it
I
last
think
for
so.
you
I think
guys?
you kind of once you get through the other side, you forget about all the shit like beforehand.
Like pregnancy.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's long hours and it's hard graft. Like, I was in Ibiza this week for IMS, and I literally got bollocked for not going to Circle Loco because I just couldn't hack it. But
It's like when you're on your way to a festival and you're like, oh, I really just want to stay at home this weekend.
When
You're
the
like, what
party's
would I
become a
do?
chore.
I can't do it anymore. But,
How do you cope with that, though? How do you, do you just have a mental word with yourselves?
You just kind of take a step. I take a step back and I'm like, like a lot of other people would be killing to do what you're doing right now. So like, sort yourself out, have a drink.
As Mark alluded to, there's some imbalance in the music industry, especially on the electronic scene, as to the number of women to men in the industry. And that's changing. And I had a really lovely conversation with a guy from Lee. Is Lee in the audience from Ableton? Or he might be downstairs showing people how to use equipment. Anyway, you should go and have a chat with him. But Ableton, as he told me, have adopted a very progressive policy with their company where they want to have equal 50-50 developer engineers. And so they've been actively and progressively recruiting women. And it's not just a smart move in terms of having a balanced workforce, but it's also a smart move in the fact that so many women are being encouraged to get into production and DJs. They always might have been, but now perhaps they're an untapped source of income, I suppose, for a business, but they're also hungry to be involved and not ignored and sidelined. And I thought it was a really nice thing to hear, and I'd love to hear if any of you guys have come across other companies or businesses or campaigns or artists that are pushing things forwards, not just for women but for the industry as as a human industry. If you have any examples, I'd love to have you share them.
I mean, I work with a lot of strong women generally. I mean, Gata, which is sacrilege to probably everyone here, is one of my main clients, and his team is just strong females. His manager, Caroline Provero's, she's a pit bull. She's one of the biggest managers in the game. And her agent as well, Maria May. So, he's surrounded by a really strong female base. And I work with artists like Nastia and Nicole Mudabar. So there's a lot of strong female people out there.
Yeah, I was going to say Maria May at CAA. I was on a panel with her just 2 days ago, and she was like, basically, I think I need to change my outlook because I only seem to employ women. But I was like, that's good because it's I think in a way there kind of needs to be policies like that because it promotes diversity in a way, in a strange kind of paradoxical way. Maybe companies should be made to employ more women, and not just women, but people from lower class backgrounds and people from different ethnic minorities as well, because in the music business there is still, and just generally in most businesses, when you go higher up, there is a lack of diversity. And maybe by employing people from different backgrounds, it will inspire people that come from those backgrounds to realise that they do have a chance of getting in, because you know, like for me, when I was growing up, I grew up on a council estate, but I never had that kind of, oh, I'm from a council estate and I'm never going to get anywhere type of view. But there were definitely a lot of people that did, and rightly or wrongly, you know, we do live in a free world, and you pretty much should be able to get where you want to, but it's not always possible, and you don't always look up and see people in prominent positions that can inspire you because you can't relate to them, you know, like, so perhaps by Maria having a team of women and she's like out doing conferences or panels and stuff, and maybe there's women in the audience that be like, wow, look, she's bloody up there, and she's
sort of thing. Yeah, I actually I've worked. This is the third role that I've had in music now, and the past two roles. One was at Boiler Room, who most of you guys will know, and the one before that was a company called AI Media, which runs lots of different YouTube channels, including Majestic Casual, Sound You Need, and UKF. And in both of those companies, there were stints where we had at least between 10 and 25 employees, and I would be the only woman at both those companies. That's not the case anymore, actually, at both of them, which is really nice to see. But there was certainly a sense of like feeling slightly isolated, and you know, sometimes maybe that gave you a little bit more wiggle room with some things, and in other ways it didn't. But what was lacking always was a sort of female mentor, a direct female report that I could, you know, talk about things, not like women's stuff, but just like have a peer-to-peer conversation with. And, you know, I think that's really important, knowing those people. And that's one of the things that I hope, you know, that She Said So can provide for younger women coming into music, that they can find those people and, you know, connect with them. But I'd love to hear about some of your mentors, if you guys have anybody who along the way has touched you in some way and improved your career direction.
I mean, for me, it's people that I work with every day. Like even people like Sarah that put this on, like seeing them grinding and like how hard they work. Is that like I work with a lot of we have so many clients like that are just like so dedicated, and like seeing that every day like is what I'm like, right, that's what I need to keep like work towards. So
that's amazing that your clients are inspiring you as well. that it's not like the people behind in the industry; it's actually the artists themselves and the festival runners, and that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, in Listen Up, there's a team of 30. The two MDs are both male, but the rest of the team is pretty much female. So we've got a really strong support system. I mean, it's 90% female.
Excellent. You and Erin are running the press together as well. They're definitely very strong women. What about you, Shanti? Do you?
Yeah, they're all boys, though.
That's fine. Do you know what? That's absolutely fine.
I mean, they're all just like people that I've worked in record shops with, like guys who are just like in their 30s who just like know so much about music, and they just basically they make me want to know more because they know so much that I'm just like, oh, I need to find tunes that they don't have, which just I think probably makes me a better DJ, just because I'm surrounded by these guys who just like, and I'm really competitive, so I just like, I just want to know loads of tunes that they don't know. So I work really hard to like find that, and we just spend like hours kind of just like, oh, well, have you got this one? And it's like, so that's kind of like, and my friends also, like, I can count like about 10 female DJs who are just my close friends, basically. And it's, you know, being around them is also really nice because, it's just, you share music in a different way, I think. I don't know, but it's lovely, like, friends really, they're what inspire me, and my mentors.
Yeah, good. I mean, we were chatting earlier, actually, Dresden and I, about the fact that in certain markets in music, it's much more female populated, and actually marketing and PR is one. Yeah. And I know that there's been some bad press about people referring to women as PR girls, and that's like, you know, lose that title.
Yeah, definitely.
But we do have to acknowledge that there are more women in marketing than there are men. And actually the marketeers are running the industry at the moment. Like they are, if you look at any of the jobs websites, you know, the posts that we put up on the network day in, day out, everyone's looking for marketeers and PR people because they need to cut through. There's so much music out there. There's so many platforms. It's the barriers to entry in music in terms of actually making it are lower than ever. So people just making a shit ton of music, and how do you cut it? How do you cut it out, you know, the wheat from the chaff? And you need good PR people and marketing people. I mean, hopefully talent rises to the top, but notwithstanding that, might rise quicker if you've got the person to carve out the path for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Why do you think women are attracted to that particular area?
I mean, I think generally women are much more organised, a bit more personable. You know, just saying. I mean, like the imbalance is that, like, I think a lot there's a lot more journalists that are male, there's a lot more artists that are male, and DJs that are male, and women seem to naturally fall into the role that's sort of marketing and PR side of things, because I think they're just more on it with that side of things. Okay. So, yeah.
We're desperately looking for boys to hire, so if anyone has any CVs, like, leave them at the site. Need boys.
Love that. Would you agree with that, Marcus, that there's most journalists in the music world are male?
Yeah, I was actually I was reading something the other day, or I heard something the other day that said that most music journalists are men. And I guess, like, yeah, if I sort of take a step back and think about it, that most music journalists are guys, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess, like, it's probably a bad thing because there needs to be more balance. One of my favourite female journalists is a writer from DJ Mag called Charlotte, who's their online editor, and she's out all the time. She's doing panels, and she's like
so young.
Yeah, and she's just like, she's just so on it, and I think she comes from Australia, so she like came from Australia to the UK, and she's smashing it, and like she does all of these big interviews and just like cracks on, you know, and like she's inspirational, I hope, to young women that want to get into writing about music, because, you know, as I said just now, my point is always going to be there should be more diversity, not only for the sake of inspiring people that are coming up, but also just in terms of opinion. Like, there's probably a lot of music journalists that are like old white dudes that have been incumbent for years that just like are jaded, basically, and you need to have young, fresh people from all different backgrounds that can offer different opinions and present new cultures and new scenes, you know. Like, I found out about the Egyptian electronic scene through like a guy who I met when I went to Reeperbahn Festival, and the music's mental. It's like so mental. It's like a lot of it starts off with like gunshots, and then like some guy rapping in Arabic, and it's like brutal and like.
It's a bit like reggaeton but Arabic, isn't it? It's quite weird.
It's mad, but like, you know, he comes from an Arabic background and he grew up in London, but you know he had a keen interest in that side of things because that's what his culture is, and he presented that to me, and I was like, what the fuck? I've never heard this shit before, you know, and like. If he wasn't around and everyone was all from the same background, that music, well, obviously he hasn't made it into the public realm yet, but it wouldn't be, I wouldn't know about it, you wouldn't know about it, no, I wouldn't be able to speak about it in front of all of you lot. So, you know, it's important that there are people from all different backgrounds in my industry and in the music industry in general, so that things like that happen.
There's somebody mentioned earlier, I think it might have been Mark, on the keynote, talked about immediacy and how everything, through using the internet, we can get stuff so quickly, and we expect to understand about scenes and about music as soon as it kind of goes live. And, you know, whilst it's great to have diversity in press in terms of people access to new scenes as soon as they arrive, there is something to be said as well for the fact that, you know, I sometimes feel that the press over-publicise new scenes before they really are scenes, and thereby kind of weigh in. And so, like, I don't know if diversity is just about access. I think it's kind of about, like, you know, giving things like monetary funding to those scenes to develop, and recognising that stuff takes a longer time than just to, like, you know, like, I'm kind of anti, like, that sort of premiere culture where it's just like you just post something and therefore it exists, and it's like you kind of still need to build. Like, how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like online press, like everything is so instant. So if stuff is just like track premieres and like something that's instantly online, if there's no substance and that is the top layer, then you're not really building anything. And like you need to, for something to last long term, it needs to be like properly built on. The story needs to be there. The artists need to have stuff to say, or the scene. Like yeah, it's too disposable otherwise.
I also find. Talking to the PR and journalists on the panel, that a lot of press about artists is, I mean, it's always so release driven. You don't actually find out that much about the individuals, and that's why it's so nice to come to these panels and hear like you boys talk and actually like get a sense of your personality, because it's often hard in the press releases to understand that, because it's quite like release and like and launch focused. And you know, how can we stretch that out and actually get to know our artists as individuals and people, I suppose?
I mean, I don't know, it's kind of so dependent on a campaign, and, you know, some artists just don't like doing press at all. I know, like, Matt and Andy don't like an interview.
Oh, don't you?
So it depends who you're working with. But, I mean, premieres in general are so dead online. It's like we're constantly looking for new, exciting ways of premiering music. Like, I think it was Scream who did the thing where you have to, like, call a mobile number, and then you hear the bit of the tune. Or he, like, released the lineup. But it's like, you know, constantly we need new ways to get material out there.
That was one of my favourite recent PR campaigns. And actually, the Bicep one with XOIO, you sent me a vinyl with a mix on it. I was like, yes, quality.
So good.
And Scream's residency was they sent out like an old mobile phone in a jiffy bag with like a number.
Nokia.
Yeah, and like it said, phone this number on this date. And then I was just like, what? That is like, how did they even know that I lived here? What? Like, I honestly, I Instagrammed it and I was like, who got my address and sent me this phone? What's going on?
That's amazing. Have you got any more examples of great PR campaigons? I know Scream also did something in a rickshaw recently.
Did that.
And basically, it's Scream.
Yeah.
We got him
moving forward for the music industry.
We got him really drunk and bought a rickshaw for 400 quid and just gave him a bottle of Jägermeister and drove him around for a day. It's great. It's a job done.
DJing in a rickshaw around Oxford Street.
When he turned
by
up,
Rob Starr from Eastern Electrics.
Yeah, whose festival it was.
So the guy who's running the festival is riding a rickshaw around Soho with Scream DJing in the back of the rickshaw.
it was very renegade.
That's great PR.
Went everywhere as well. Big ups.
I've kind of run out of questions for now. Has anybody got any questions from the audience? Help me out. Yeah. Maybe I should give you this.
Thank you. So we touched on gender roles before, and how there is kind of this divide. And I think like the point we kind of talk about is, you know, having a greater equality between, you know, more diversity within the industry. But how do we combat gender roles as a whole so that we don't have, you know, women leaning to one side like marketing and males leaning to one side like the artist, and combating that without iconicizing it? So having a female headliner and, you know, making that very flamboyant point that she is the one, you know, headliner.
I reckon it's definitely about education. Like there's a producer called Emma who's on Key Sound. Like, she does a lot of underground stuff, but she's actually started doing regular workshops where she takes over Radar Radio for a day, and like she's bringing in 20 producers. She sits them there all day, like teaches them how to use Ableton, teaches them how to do everything, and like stuff like that is how that actually is starting to change from the bottom. It isn't, you know, like, I'm going to stick someone on the top of a like festival bill to try and prove a point. Like, I think that's really important.
Also, as a female, it's not nice to just be put there because you're a girl.
Female
I hate
DJ.
that. Like, I want to do well because I'm talented, not because I'm a girl. Like, that really like gets to me. You know, like, I don't play on all female lineups because I don't think that should be like a thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
well, it's definitely not going to make sense in terms of the bookings before and after you, is it? It's just not going to. But in terms of what you're saying about women leaning towards marketing, I mean, I don't know. Maybe women are leaning towards marketing because they are great at talking to men, for example. Maybe as the women start to produce more men will go into marketing. Maybe there's a natural synergy there. I don't know. But what I do think is that I don't think we should try and focus on like making tomorrow's women more manly and more aggressive and all this. But like, I think women need more confidence generally. Like, I work with a lot of developing artists, and when I work with young solo artists who are men, they're normally between the ages of 17 and 20 when they come in, and they've been writing for years, and their ambitions are to be a solo artist. The women tend to be in their mid-20s because they've done backing vocals and they've worked in bands as the vocalist for years before they actually learn to have the confidence and strength of character to say, actually, I'm good enough to do this by myself, and I don't need the rest of that band and the guy telling me how to do this or whatever. And that's like within all of us to bring forward. That's the responsibility of the men as well as the women in the room to say, when they hear somebody who's able to push them and encourage them and inspire them. And it's not for women to try and be men and be aggressive. It's more about women like knowing their sense of self, and they can be strong and soft at the same time. Women can be more emotional than men, and that's a great thing. There's a balance there, and I don't think that should be cold water should be poured on that. I just think that if somebody's brilliant and they've got an opportunity, encourage them. And there's so much competition. People sometimes, there's jealousy. People sometimes don't encourage people in the same way, and they really should. If one person's successful, the next person's not unsuccessful as a direct result. In order for scenes to become successful, everybody in them needs to be building them. You can't have a lineup of just one guy just doing one sort of music playing for 6 hours. You need to have all the other people in the lineup who together bring their mates, and it's all like we're a community, we're a team. That's how it should be viewed, and the women are there alongside the men.
I think we also need to work a little bit on breaking down like preconceived gender roles from the time like you're kids, because like this whole thing of like women are better at communicating and men aren't, but that's almost like inbuilt into you from like you're a kid, because boys will be boys and girls will be girls, and like maybe like guys wouldn't fall into the positions that they fall into and women wouldn't fall into positions they fall into if you weren't just as a kid just like you become a moody teenager and it's expected that guys don't talk about their feelings and girls can talk about their feelings. And
some girls don't though, and some guys do. It's guys are also sensitive. I've got loads of guy mates who won't shut up.
Yeah, that's true.
Literally, and I don't shut up either. It's like I think men can be actually also really shy and also need some more confidence. Like it's not just girls who are like that. It's just that everything's just pigeonholed.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
Any other questions?
I'll bring you a microphone.
Thanks, Mark.
Andrew. Hello.
Man like least.
Like Grace, I was at IMS last week, and the great IB for the panel was a lot of it was about elevating DJ profiles, and like Richie Horton had his own night, Corolla had his own night, and they've gone from like here to here. Like there's no female DJs in IB that have their own party other than Teenie, and Teenie's now really established in what she does. So do women not want their own party to elevate it, or they're just playing safe? But like Musicon has one female DJ playing all summer, and that's Miss Kitten. She's got one date. So like, why don't women want their own female parties? Could it really elevate you as a DJ?
I think they do. I mean, Annie Mac used to run AMP in Ibiza, and very successfully. But I know I work with a DJ on Kiss called Charlie T, who's launching her own events in that sort of similar vein. But I think the clubs are not going to book female-led. It doesn't matter who it is actually, male or female. They're not going to book a night unless they're going to sell enough tickets off the back of that night. So that's where it starts. So if you've got Richie Horton, who's now running a night, you're not going to lose any sleep over the club not selling out. Whereas if it's somebody of a slightly lower, sort of Facebook stats or whatever reach at that point, then you're not going to do that. So only when you get to that certain point, and Nicole Moodaba does run Mood, her Mood nights. There are a few of them, but it's systematic of the fact that we don't have enough female producing DJs who have been widely acknowledged or have got to that top peak for whatever reason. I don't think it's for quality reasons, but I think we're in a different era now, and the more kids coming through, the more women who are coming through and making music, it's just going to hopefully be a dead issue in a few years, and that would be great because we wouldn't have to do these sorts of panels. And
there's loads of really good female DJs.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Loads.
Of course,
and there's
but
just more and more. Like,
have they run nights yet? A few of them.
No, but
I
I think it's going to
peak
happen.
Of your career, isn't it?
I think it's going to happen. I mean, like for it to just be like completely equal, like so quickly, I think is a lot. It's just not going to happen that way, and it is slowly but surely getting better and better. Like just over the past 3 years, there's so many more like well-known female DJs that are just doing like really well, just like in the space of like 2 years. And
would you care to shout out a few names?
Yeah, there's like Helena Hauff, Black Madonna.
Yeah,
like there's loads of people. Like I haven't had any sleep, so
no, sorry, it's not to put you on the spot.
Shamsi Celeste.
But there is loads. There's like that techno collective called Sirens. Have you heard of those?
Yeah.
And they did that poster with just like full of female names that are like all of them doing quite well. Then that's a lot of names. So I think it's changing. I do think it's obviously not equal at all, but I'm positive that it's going in the right direction in terms of artists anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like I said, it's the youth coming through that will change tomorrow's world. And there was an interesting video a little while ago made called Inspiring the Future. And it was basically a a classroom full of kids, teacher videoing the session saying, right, everybody, please draw a fire person, please draw a doctor, please draw a fighter jet pilot. And obviously all the kids drew men, and wrote their names next to it. And then they said, right, everybody show your pictures, lovely. Right, now we're going to meet them. And in came the fighter jet pilot, took off her helmet. It's a woman, and all the kids like, and then they did the same with the doctor, stethoscope around the neck, surgeon, woman, etc. And the point of the video was that you make your decisions about gender at that age, at your sort of 4, 5, 6. And that's the time that you need to kind of get in and that's the time that you need to show that it's possible. And I think in tomorrow's world it will be.
I do think that in schools they should, I know it sounds weird, but I think that if I was at school in I don't know, year 10 or something, and I had a guy who was just if I had DJ lessons, or if that was available to me, then you would instantly know that that's actually a career choice that you could actually consider, rather than it just becoming this sort of male hobby that then girls are kind of intimidated by, because that's why I think girls are intimidated by it, because that's what it is. That's when it first starts, it usually is. It's just a hobby that guys have. Whereas if it was actually something that was taught in schools, or something that was made available to you as an actual career choice, it would be very, very different. And still now people are just what, you're a DJ? Literally I sit next to people on the plane and they're just so what do you do? I'm a DJ, and they're oh, is that a real job? Literally, is that a real job? And I'm just It's just not. It's still not really acknowledged as a real job, career. I think. Well,
in this room, it probably is.
Yeah. No, obviously, in this room is. But I think actually,
no,
a lot of the world, it isn't yet, because I think it's a relatively new thing. Do you know what I mean?
I quite agree. I think career teaching in schools leaves a lot to be desired, or at least it did when I was at school.
That's the point, isn't it? It's it's opening up the possibilities to people, whatever gender, class, or ethnicity they are. It's just going, this is possible. You can do this, rather than just going, yeah, you go and do your hair care, and the guy will do this, and and that's kind of how it is when you're at school, isn't it? It's kind of divided in that way, to a degree. Not for everybody, but to a degree, it's kind of that system of education guides you in that kind of path to a degree.
So basically, we need to be giving this talk to 5 or 6-year-olds. Unless anybody's got any other questions, I think. Oh, yes?
It's going to have to be quick, Barry.
Quick. Sorry, I don't want to overrun us.
Yeah, I'm just, we talked a lot about women actually working in the industry, but I've always been interested in women as punters at gigs, and the gender imbalance there that you tend to see. I'm obviously in Belfast, maybe different from you guys DJing across the world or working in England, but I know in Belfast, some great nights, Twitch, Beat Barbecue, but they tend to be leaning towards more guys at them. And just saw that Glastonbury announced that there's going to be a women-only venue, just completely all women. And it's called Sisterhood or something, but I just wonder what your thoughts are on the gender imbalance as for women as punters rather than actually working in the industry.
It's a nightmare sometimes. I tried to go to Fabric on my own to see Soul Capsule in room 1, and it was fucking horrendous. It was just you can't stand for 5 minutes without getting harassed, which is such a shame. Yeah. It's really bad. You can't kind of get away from that.
There's a lot of work being done in London at the moment about safe spaces and re-educating bouncers and staff who are being very responsible about not if somebody's being sort of grabbed or touched inappropriately or whatever, they're actually removed from the club. It's not like they're just sort of taken away. And London is being very conscious about this at the moment. There's a long way still to go, but it's on the mind of the punters, men speaking to other men on behalf of people they don't actually know, but saying, no, you need to calm that down. And I feel there's a conscious energy in the clubs at the moment. Still more way to go. Once it gets there, I guess more women will probably come because they feel safer there. And hopefully, with more DJs and producers who resonate with women, particularly, it might get even better, I hope.
I don't know if safe spaces are the answer, though. It's that, was it Jeremy Corbyn or someone said that they wanted to create a carriage only for women on the train so that they don't get harassed? No. It's you shouldn't create a space just so that women are they go there and there's no men there. It should be educate all of those fuckers and make them realise how difficult it is for women when they go to clubs and they're on their own like Grace and they're getting harassed left, right and centre. And put yourself in their shoes. Have you ever thought about what it's like to be a woman being harassed in the club as a man? No. If you haven't, think about it.
Marcus recently DJ'd at a gay club and got harassed all night long and came home. All night long and came home. He got touched up in the toilets, all sorts. Came home and told me about it and was like, I can't believe you guys have to put up with that day in, day out. And so hats off, guys. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Cheers.